What happens when you read two books that both claim they're going to change your life, yet they tell you to do the exact opposite things? You learn that A, books are basically just tweets without a character limit, B, there is no one book that's going to solve all of your problems, and C, there are far more people that want to tell you how to do the thing than there are people that have actually done the thing. We know this because you probably already have the answers. You've already been told by your favorite speaker every possible way of ridding yourself of procrastination, getting rich quick, and living the life you've always wanted to live. But it's never been about your lack of knowledge. It's been you delaying trying it for the first time. And knowing what to try is just as difficult, because your journey to self-helping yourself will contain plenty you've already seen, along with plenty of conflicting advice. That was my experience when reading these two books that basically taught me diametrically opposed ideologies. The Richest Man in Babylon is a personal finance book released in the 1920s, compiled from old bank and insurance brochures. Fun stuff. And the 4-Hour Workweek is a self-help book released in this century, where being sensational and providing self-proclaimed life-changing advice is a means of grabbing the reader's attention. Also, the author has a podcast, because of course he does. Armib, as we will call it, uses the everyday problems of fictional characters in ancient Babylon, and uses their problems to dispense financial advice, such as how to make money and then keep it. On the other hand, the 4-Hour Workweek is a non-fiction account of the author's personal experience in growing his business and cutting back his own involvement. Now you're probably thinking, right, one is a real story and the other is like Dune for people that do taxes. So obviously the non-fiction account is the one I should trust, right? Well, if we take a look at what this non-fiction book is preaching, much of it is structured around parables like start thy purse to fattening and control thy expenditures. When you translate these to modern English, it is fairly useful advice, like saving a certain percentage of your income, controlling your spending, and investing cautiously. And while this might seem like common sense, as we mentioned earlier, you're not always going to get new information from a book. But it's nice to be reminded of what you know so that you can consider it from a different perspective. But again, this doesn't mean this is the only approach you're allowed to take. The 4-Hour Workweek gained notoriety for the way it approached work in the 21st century. It's the polar opposite of the previous book in the way that it's hyper-specific to the modern era, going as far as including links to relevant websites and services. This book basically begs you to negotiate remote work back when it was far from normal. And if you're hybrid, do worse on your in-office days to show the contrast. This isn't to say that the book doesn't get general. Much of the ideology preached in the book comes from the idea of simplifying your life and reducing your own active involvement. The Pareto principle, which I have no doubt you'll recognize once I say 80-20 rule, is preached throughout. Does this make one better than the other? Not necessarily. It kind of just depends on how you want to live your life. If you're of the mindset of grind now, enjoy later, if you have a black phone background that says delayed gratification, The Richest Man in Babylon is right up your alley. But if you can't stand the idea of the traditional 9-to-5 retired 65 lifestyle, the 4-Hour Workweek might be more your wheelhouse. It very much speaks to the idea of not waiting around until some imaginary retirement age to do the things you've always wanted to do. All this being said, I think the most interesting thing about these books, and the reason I don't want to accept either one fully, is the attitude they approach life with. Yes, both might potentially contain the right messaging to kick you into gear, which is probably why you're reading self-help books in the first place, but here's where they depart. Armib feels like it's okay with being traditional and working within the system to earn your leisure. It's not asking you to never branch out. Rather, it's asking you to change the way you deal with money rather than always trying to make more of it. Save now so that you can enjoy later. In essence, you remain a cog in the framework of society, but an efficient cog at that. I don't mind this in theory, but at the same time, you can't always be saving up for some imagined future that isn't guaranteed. There must be a healthy balance. The 4-Hour Workweek, on the other hand, has so much hatred for the traditional ways of working that it seems kind of personal. It asks you to sort of outsmart everyone and game the system to get your desired output. A lot of the advice is about cutting down your work, delegating your tasks to others, and enjoying your time now. Remove yourself from the equation when you can. Don't get me wrong, a lot of the advice here is genuinely useful and has broadened my perspectives. But I guess my reservation with this mindset is, if everyone followed this advice, society would not be better off. Everyone can't be a part of what the author calls the new rich, which is the most exclusive club that you wouldn't want anyone to know you're a part of. I take what I like and leave the ick behind. So what is the takeaway? It's that there's no one way to earn a living, no one way to be successful, and no one way to be happy. There are multiple ways to do the thing, but you gotta do something. Just because there are multiple ways to your destination doesn't mean you shouldn't at least get to your destination. What I learned from reading these two books is that I know what I have to do. I think. I'm fairly certain of the lifestyle I want to pursue and want to live. It's just a matter of doing the thing, and not being the guy telling you how to do the thing. So I guess just kind of ignore this whole thing. Don't share this with your friends, don't share this with your family, because it's all kind of hypocritical.